Inclusive is brought to you by Destination Everywhere, a company dedicated to travelers of all abilities. My name is Eleonora and I'm your host. So a big warm welcome to our guest today, Sara-Louise Ackrill, Sara is the founder of Wired Differently, which is a social impact company making products and services for neurodivergent people. And she is connecting today from her home in Gloucestershire in the UK. Sara, how are you? Welcome.
Hi, thank you very much for having me on.
So it's great that today we're going to be chatting about you as a traveler, because I know that you've traveled a lot, and you've also traveled during 2020, which is really, really great considering the situation. And but first of all, I would like to ask you a little bit about your work, because you're doing lots of interesting projects and you're part of some really interesting committees and groups. So what can you tell us about yourself?
Okay. Well, I'm very involved in the world of neurodiversity. So I'm diagnosed as being autistic, and everything I do is connected to neurodiversity. So my company is developing an emotional support app and a work-orientated clothing range with accessories, and also a specialist virtual assistant service for neurodivergent leaders. And alongside that, I'm director of Kimmel Foundation, which is in Berkshire, and that gets 16 to 24-year-old young people into employment who are also neurodivergent. And I'm a member of the all-party parliamentary group for inclusive entrepreneurship, which was set up this year, and that's a really, really exciting venture.
Great. No, I know you're hyperactive and doing a lot of like super interesting projects. I always see your posts on LinkedIn, and
Thank you.
It's always super interesting. I know LinkedIn is your field.
It's my playground, I think.
Yeah. No, that's like, but it's everything that you post is like super interesting, and it was lovely meeting you online. We haven't met in person yet in September when you were in Italy.
Yeah, for sure. I'm counting on both hands the amount of people I've met in the last 6 months who I've not actually met. And then you realize one day I'm going to realize my entire world is online, like a lot of people.
Yeah, but we hope to meet. I mean, you have to come to Brussels. I mean, after you started your accelerator at Startup KBC, I mean, I know you're doing everything online, but I'm sure that one day they will have to like force you to come to Brussels to meet them.
Well, I am a huge fan of Belgium. I genuinely am. I have worked in Belgium a bit on sales trips when I was in the hospitality industry, and I'm a big fan. And I speak French. Unfortunately, I don't speak Dutch, but I absolutely love the sound of it. And I'm really loving my time at Startup at KBC. And that came about because you told me I should apply. So I really owe that to you. Thank you.
Yeah, but I really hope that you actually come to Brussels, because we have a beer in waiting there to be drunk in a nice terrace outside with the bars open, and when this situation really calms down with
I can't wait
with the pandemic. Yeah.
I can't wait. I love Europe. I miss Europe so much at the moment.
But let's talk about you as a traveler, because this is why I wanted to invite you, because I know you travel a lot, and you've traveled for work, you travel for holidays, and how would you describe yourself? What is your travel style, and what are the things you look for when you're planning a holiday or also a work trip? What kind of traveler are you?
Well, I've obviously thought about these questions in advance, and that's good, or you would have had the full autistic brain dump. But I think I'm a loner when I travel. But the irony is I actually travel to places where I really adore the people. It's very much the people that make a place for me. But because of how I am being autistic, I like to control my environment. I like to have free reign on how I manage my time. I'm not great with changes of plan. I don't want to be annoying for someone else who's very spontaneous and, getting away from the day job and going on holiday, and they absolutely want to feel free and able to take up opportunities here and there. I don't want to hold anyone back. But I am pretty adventurous. In my own way, I've rappelled backwards down waterfalls in Chile, and I've trekked in the Thai jungle like everyone who's backpacked in Thailand.
Wow.
But I'm not a sporty person. I'm not outdoorsy. I had difficulty, for example, in Australia. I'm very British and bookish and probably a little bit old school. And I found that culture quite sort of outdoorsy, and it didn't really fit me personally. Although I did like Sydney. But no, I think to describe myself as a traveler, I would say I'm a loner, but I love people. And I kind of love people watching, and I've enjoyed that very much in my favorite places, which are, I mean, I'm a huge fan of France. I lived there for 10 years. But I'm a huge fan of Beirut. That's one of my absolute favorite destinations, Lebanese culture and people. I love Greece. I love Italy. And continuing in that theme of sort of Eastern Med areas, I'd love to go to Turkey. And I think the reasons that I liked destinations I liked in Asia, for example, I loved China, loved Malaysia. I wasn't actually that keen on Thailand when I first went, but I did read some books that said you might find that you love it when you leave. And I did. I really love it kind of retrospectively. So I'd like to go back. Um, and I love anything to do with Indian culture, Afghani, Pakistani, Bangladeshi culture. Sri Lanka I really loved. But I think that the common theme was the people. It's absolutely people that make it for me.
Cool, but basically you're describing a series of destinations that are all full of like how can you say, unexpected things that can happen all the time. I mean, I'm thinking, well, Italy first of all. It's the country of accidents, delays. You know, I'm Italian, so I'm always super critical. But it's really a country where I think planning is sometimes a bit difficult. I mean, yeah, it's a beautiful country, but yeah.
It's interesting. I used to be PA to the senior area director of sales at Hilton Worldwide. So we had hotels in North Africa and Indian Ocean. And I remember when he interviewed me, and we were on our fourth interview, and I said, look, why have you called me back here? Do I have this job or not? And he kind of said, there's something that really bothers me about you. And he said there's some real sort of, there's some real things that don't tie up here. There's some inconsistencies. You tell me you like routine and you like consistency, but on the other hand, you go to some very unreassuring places.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
And you mentioned, some of the places I'd backpacked in, and it's funny. I think when you're autistic, you can actually cope with some quite unusual sets of circumstances, and you do tend to be quite patient because everyday stuff is a bit of a pain. But I think I can control my environment in the sense that I know when we spoke in the summer, I was saying to you, I love backpacking. I think it just fits with my value system. And it's true, it doesn't technically fit with being autistic. But I can give you some examples of really silly things, actually, that make my life great when I'm traveling. And one of them is going to a hostel. And fortunately, this has become quite common, where you get curtains around your bed. Now, I'm capable of going and staying in a war zone as long as my bunk bed has curtains around it. And I have, a charger for my phone, which gives me constant feedback. And I have my favorite books on my Kindle. And it's strange. You sort of seek familiarity, but at the same time, you can be relatively daring. I mean, I've been to destinations which are considered, luxurious and or relaxing. I was very lucky to go to the Maldives because I had a partner at the time who was working there, and I was able to stay with him, and it was great to tick it off, but it just wasn't for me. I did like the people, although you're not only dealing with Maldivian people in the Maldives. Obviously, it's a bit of a melting pot, which is nice, but doesn't necessarily hint at the culture. I actually learned an awful lot more about the Maldives reading some excellent books on the place rather than actually when I was there. But then when we hopped over to Sri Lanka for the weekend, I was just in my element because that was, for me, was real traveling. It just seemed more real. It is more real, So yeah, it's funny. I'm aware that I don't choose, Mallorca or whatever, and not from any point of view other than I just like things to be a bit more convivial, I think, and I definitely like to get under the skin of a culture. And I think also I'm a real armchair traveler as well. I will read. I'm a big fan of this thing called the Shelter Box Book Club, and I'm not sure if they ship internationally, but I get a book every month which forces me to read fiction, and they're always set in, or generally set in, developing countries, and generally a writer that might not be super well known in the UK. So I've just read a fantastic book by a Lebanese writer, and that was recommended through the book club. So I'm a real armchair traveller at the moment, because obviously we're in our third lockdown in the UK, can't go anywhere. And I cannot wait.
So lots of reading.
Yeah, lots and lots of reading. Yeah, that's a big passion. But generally, there's a travel element to what I read.
And what are your online sources for planning a trip? Do you have like favorite websites or newsletters that you subscribe to?
That's interesting, actually. I don't think I have a system particularly. If someone was to say to me now, lockdown's over, here's £1,000, go and spend it on a trip, what would I do? I'd probably look for the quirky youth hostels, because it's funny, actually. I call them youth hostels. I'm 42. They're not youth hostels. They're hostels. But I guess you differentiate between different types of hostels. They're tourism hostels, I guess. And yeah, I would look at individual quirky hostels and book direct. I think, having been in hospitality, I try to book direct when I can, just so that they avoid those crazy fees. But then you can't hate those websites either, because a lot of small businesses are getting huge exposure using a lastminute.com or whatever. So but I don't have a particular way. I would just say I tend to book direct. Yes, obviously websites and everything are helpful, because in the old days, I suppose you would have used Lonely Planet, and I love those.
Love travel? Miss travel, right? Then you should join Tabbyfolk, the online community for inclusive travel, where you can meet people from all over the world, exchange tips, ask questions, meet locals, and be the local that they ask questions to also. So create your profile on Tabbyfolk. It's free, and it's a lively and international community that you will love to spend time with. Tabbyfolk.com. The address is in the podcast notes. Enjoy. So if you had a grand, where would you go now? Which country? Which destination?
Your home country is one of my favorites, and I was lucky enough to spend 2 weeks in Sicily on a research project last year, and I did get to go away with friends who treated me to a week at a villa in Lake Garda, which was an amazing experience.
Oh, beautiful.
Don't make a habit of hanging out in villas on Lake Garda. I felt very, very lucky. Yeah, I definitely miss Italy, because everyone says, yeah, of course you're on a research project with all the photos of your food. But my God, my lunch every day was just the highlight. It was just incredible. And the walking in that beautiful sun, and Sicily is just stunning. I just loved it. Yeah, I think I'd love to go back to Beirut. Obviously, that is very, very difficult right now. And it was actually, it was difficult when I went at the time, actually. But that was an interesting lesson, going to Beirut, because having lived 10 years in France, I consulted the French embassy or consulate, and I consulted the British one. And one was saying, absolutely don't go, whatever colour your passport is. And the other one was saying, pretty much, please go. It's a fantastic tourist destination. And when I got there, the Lebanese people were saying, will you please tell your friends it's amazing here? And we're a bit of a victim of the world's media. So it did give me...
reassure them.
Well, yeah, it did give me a sort of other view, because I am a bit gullible, actually. And as long as I'm reading, in inverted commas, the right newspapers, I do tend to believe what I read, which might not be very healthy. And it's true. You are told not to go to certain destinations, and you have to ask yourself why sometimes.
Oh, I see. But so what would you say in your whole life? You traveled so much, but what would you say was your favorite past trip and your least favorite, like the nightmare one?
Oh, my God. Okay. The nightmare one, and I have to give full kudos to my former partner, because put it this way, I had never felt so autistic as when I arrived in Chile. I loved Santiago, absolutely loved it. Really suited me, reminded me of Exarchia, the sort of grungy parts of Athens. And I love places like that, eastern suburbs of Paris and the sort of, I love those bits. But Chile as a whole, I say as a whole, most people go to the north and the south. I did zero research. So I did the middle. My partner and I did the middle. We hadn't really put any research into it. I can't recommend the middle part of Chile particularly. It wasn't massively stimulating. I think, knowing I'm neurodivergent, I do need a bit of stimulatory impetus, or input rather. And I think I just had too much time to feel in a very sort of underwhelming place, and I wasn't coping with my traits because this was a long time ago. I'm going back about 12 years. I didn't even know I was autistic. I completely imploded and I was very, very poorly. In fact, I got back from there. I hid it from my partner at the time, and it was hard, I think, for them to hear that actually I'd had a really bad trip because I just felt so ill, and I'd kept it from them. So for personal reasons, Chile was difficult, but Chilean people, amazing. Went to a sort of, I think it was a Michelin recommended or Michelin starred restaurant, which was all based on foraging. That was an amazing experience. But personally, it was a bad trip. And I would say that my relationship with travel is very complicated because for much of my life, I didn't know what was wrong with me, as it were. And there are benefits of being autistic. There are drawbacks, and travel is a very difficult subject for us. So Chile definitely would be the, oh my God, I need to change my life trip. The things are not right with me. The things I loved Athens. I love Greece. I'll always have huge love for Paris. I spent so much of my childhood dreaming of it. And as soon as I was old enough, I went and lived there. I loved Beirut very, very much. China, very, very lovely memories of the countryside. Long train trips in China, something I think about often. That the countryside, the rice paddies, the way that people get on at every stop with hawker food and try and fatten you up, basically, because they just always think you should be eating in China. So many trips, actually, which is nice because I was a bit worried when you invited me to do this that I might think, oh my goodness, I'm not the right person. I found travel so difficult.
Oh, no.
Maybe I'll be negative, but yeah, I realize I have been to quite a few places, and actually I think I must love travel, because if traveling is so difficult for me and I keep doing it, there's got to be
Yeah, exactly.
something in me loves travel very much. And I think it's the people again. I think, same as in Chile, even though it was a very difficult trip for me personally, you'd only have to have a really lovely conversation with someone to feel, oh, for that moment, I'm at home. I feel safe. I feel comfortable. I feel like I like myself, and people transform those experiences.
Right. But I'm speaking about Chile. I am very curious now about the Michelin star restaurant where you ate foraging.
Yeah.
Please tell me more. What is this about?
I have to have a think where it was, actually. And then maybe you could put that in your show notes. I don't know. I can't think. I know that we were on the trip south from Santiago to Chile. And I mean, as I say, we didn't make it to the far north or the far south, which is where everyone goes when they do Chile. I will have to find that out. It's a long time ago, but it was memorable because I'd never had a meal that was exclusively foraging. She was a female chef, which I'm not sure how common that is in Chile, particularly to have a female, very high profile chef. So it was, a really unique experience. And it was in the middle of nowhere as well. I remember we had to get several buses and walk up some hills, and it was really, really remote. So, I mean, she must have been entirely relying on the Michelin guide for people to look her up and be foodie enough
So she get there,
to try. Yeah.
Wow. Well, we've had Josh who told us in the previous interview. It was very funny because he spoke about his trip to Mongolia.
Oh, wow.
And he said that they went to a local village and he was given horse yogurt. And I was very curious about the horse yogurt because it was like, can you make yogurt from horse milk? It was like really.
Oh my
So it's so great to hear all these stories about what people have strange things that people are eating while on holiday.
Horse yogurt sounds a little bit like some kind of word for nightmare.
Yes.
But I'm curious too, actually. I remember when I was in China, I had a lot of Mongolian barbecue food in Beijing, and I really would love to go to Mongolia, Nepal, the kind of mountainous countries. Yeah, I'd love to go to those sorts of regions. That would be amazing.
So what would be the weirdest food you ate that now that we're on to food?
I'm a bit of a wuss, I think. I think on the one hand, I love food and I love wine, and I do like, I'll be the sort of person who'll be broke all month, but will blow a couple of £100 on a really nice restaurant and then, wear dodgy clothes and eat cereal for another month. But
Yay.
when it comes to traveling, I've never been that adventurous person that goes to Thailand and eats barbecued insects, and I'm a bit of a wuss, and I guess also I'm thinking, well, why would I do that when I could just eat something really amazing? Yeah, I'm probably not going to be the most experimental guest you have on. I don't think, I mean, yeah, you go to France, especially a long time ago, where horse was a thing. And I did get caught out. And in Brussels, actually, once I did end up eating horse without realizing it. And I'm going back now to, like, I don't know, 1994 or something, when I was on my first school trip. Because actually, my first trip abroad was actually Brussels. So that's why.
Wow. Oh, no, this is sweet.
That's why it's really nice to be on Start It. It's like I've turned a full circle from leaving school, Yeah, Brussels is special to me for lots of reasons. But no, apart from horse meat in Brussels, I don't think I've particularly eaten anything. I don't have, allergies. I'm not vegan, vegetarian, whatever. So I'm technically able to try all sorts of things, and maybe I don't make use of that.
What's your favorite? This other question I wanted to ask you. What's your favorite means of transport?
Ooh.
Are you like the kind of person that loves doing a 12-hour flight because you sleep all through it, or watch 25 movies, or are you more of a train lover? What's your favorite way to move around?
Well, I love the coach, and I think my friends would tease me for that, because I don't know, but in England, that's seen as a bit of a sort of like older person's way of traveling. But that's why I like it, because you meet nice older people. You don't get any trouble on a coach. You tend to get a driver with a nice sense of humor. And I love that experience. And I don't like getting somewhere too quickly. So I've often taken the coach, especially in the old days. I used to take the coach from Exeter in southwest UK down to Dijon very regularly, and that would take, I don't even know how many hours, maybe 18 or something. And that was beautiful, because you'd wake up in France with, all the beautiful landscape, and you had that sort of foreign exchange feel that you had on school trips, and then you'd have to get the ferry. Obviously, then we got Eurotunnel. But yeah, actually, probably might be the only guest you get that says they like the coach best. Oh, and trains in China.
Oh, right. Yeah, but always with the slow, let's say, travel style. Yeah.
Yes.
I've taken a lot of coaches because they're very cheap. Well, they before the pandemic, because they were very cheap. So I took them for, let's say, an economic reason mainly.
Yeah,
And,
for sure.
yeah, lots of time. I think I preferred the train personally, but I see your reasons. So
I think the other reason is coaches, you tend to go city centre to city centre, so it's just a lot more practical.
yeah, that's very practical.
And it's quite nice arriving in the middle of things, because, like, for example, Paris, the airport is a 45-minute drive from the city, and you don't see the best parts of France on the way to Paris. So it kind of puts a little dampener on things before you arrive. Whereas if you take a Eurostar or a coach and you get right into the heart of Paris or wherever when you arrive, it's just a little bit more magical, I think, arriving in the city centre.
Yeah, especially if you're arriving in Paris. I miss Paris so much. It's so near, but it's for the moment a bit too complicated to go there. I wanted to ask you, where can people find you online? I wanted you to tell us all your online places, from your website to your social media.
Okay, well, my website is wireddifferently.co.uk, and I'm on LinkedIn as Sara-Louise Ackrill. At the moment, that's pretty much it. I'm on Twitter, not very much. More to communicate with people who have lived experience of autism and ADHD, etc., and to communicate kind of on a person to person level. But LinkedIn is definitely where I feel most at home. I think because it's become really inclusive and accessible since the pandemic. So the sort of feel of LinkedIn has massively changed. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, one more question. Do you use apps for travel? Do you use any like mobile apps in particular when you're traveling?
Okay. I don't, because this would sound like a plug if my app was made, but it's a while off being made. So I'll indulge. The reason I'm creating an app, and I have a really exciting high profile investor who I can't name, but who's sufficiently exciting to attract further investment.
This is great.
Yeah, I don't think so. The reason I'm making that, in all honesty, is I have struggled for decades with travel. It's a big passion. I want autistic people and other neurodivergent people to benefit. And the particular type of support that I envisage and have given as a therapist and see works doesn't exist at the moment. So my ideal app, and actually when I was packing for Sicily, the reason I was going to Sicily was to be a resident befriender in a hostel. And as I was packing, I thought to myself, this whole thing needs to be an app, because I just reached for my pocket and I just had that instinct to go to my phone, because that's what you do now, isn't it? You go to your phone for everything,
Yeah.
even stuff you don't want to go to your phone for, like your banking or whatever, you still go to your phone. So I just reached in my pocket and thought, oh God, I wish there was an app for this. I wish I could just have that support now, as I'm about to take a trip and I'm just feeling myself dissociate from my body and get very weirded out, and about to go to an airport, which I know will freak me out and possibly make me ill, and all that sort of thing. So the short answer is that personally, that app that I need doesn't exist yet, which is why I'm creating one.
This is great. But I have another question. What is a resident befriender?
They don't exist, and this is why I was doing it. So in all my times traveling, I've thought to myself, it would be amazing if there was someone here who got this and I could go and talk to them before I go on this really scary day trip, or before I meet new people, or whatever traveling means at that time. And there was never anyone that I could just go to. I found traveling very full. When I think about backpacking after university, for example, I found it very fake. It didn't suit me at all. I love backpacking as an adult, but as a young person, I found it very superficial, and it was very much, well, who are you, where do you come from, where are you going next? It was the same three questions. And actually my partner, when I was in Chile, said to me, God, backpackers only ask three questions: who are you, where are you from, where are you going? And then they walk away and the conversation's over. And there's a really good book by William Boyd called Are You Experienced? I don't know if you've read that. It's a parody of backpacking culture. And I read it and thought, oh my God, someone understands. This is wonderful. But I wanted more depth. And I also think, well, when you're backpacking, it's also a time where actually people are often trying to get away from something and they're drawn towards something. There's a real carrot and stick element. People always talk about what's drawing them. They never talk about what's push them away from wherever they've come from, apart from just normal curiosity. I'm also aware from training in parts of my therapy life that British girls, there's a big problem in places like Greece and areas of the Mediterranean, with drinking and sexual assault and crimes. And I was once trained by someone who'd spent time with the Greek police, specifically supporting English girls, and who were having problems. So I tend to see the outcasts, the outliers, and the weirdos, I guess, when I go traveling, or the people struggling or suffering, because of my background, because I'm a therapist and because I'm autistic. I see myself, I suppose, as a bit of an outsider, and I suppose I pick up on other outsiders, and I realize that when people are traveling, there's lots of, what did you do today? What did you try? What was the biggest thing you did? What was the greatest thing you did? But no one talks about the other stuff. And I have a real passion for that. And I just wanted to go to a hostel and be there for people, and just see what happened. And it was just a really interesting process.
But you were doing it on your own research project, or you were working with the hostel where you were?
I was working with a hostel that partnered with me because they were interested to see where this would take them as well. One of the directors had a background in psychology, and I think it just clicked. And one of my dreams, I think, in retirement is to run a backpackers hostel where I can be like this big mama that everyone comes to and talks about all the dark stuff, and then they go off and do all the fun backpacky stuff. I think that's my retirement plan.
Oh, cool. This sounds great. I would love to come to your hostel.
I think I see myself as the backpacking therapist, but I spent half my time in Sicily that and researching that, and the other half actually asking myself what would happen if this was an app, because an app can reach millions of people who are neurodivergent and backpacking or traveling. And actually, there are a couple of blogs written by autistic people who do backpack, and they do it very successfully. But in my research so far, what I've discovered is that autistic people tend to either not travel at all, apart from local travel. And there are some great apps for that too. I know Gavin Neat up in Scotland with Neatbox. He's got a great company which supports people in their daily travel, which, he's got some fantastic things going on up there. But my idea has always been to support people who want to go on, say, business trips or personal travel. Holidays with family is very, very tricky. I said to you, I travel as a loner, but if I had been a mum, and I'm never gone down that path, but there are many autistic mums and many autistic dads. And I don't know how they cope with the change in environment, the lack of feeling of physical safety in your own body, which you get when you travel and you leave your familiarity, managing children, managing the fact that they're also finding change difficult and tiredness and all the things you get when you travel anyway, managing a relationship. I just don't know how people do it. And I really want to be a kind of pressure valve for people, because actually after holidays, divorce rates go through the roof, just like after Christmas.
Yeah, it's kind of like the test, like after the
Yeah.
holiday, I really know who I'm with. So
Exactly.
it can go both ways. Yeah, it can be very bad or really good.
It's true. And another thing that concerns me is that I think in the non-disabled world, people tend to think that you're either disabled or you're not. You're either ill or you're not. You've either got a condition or you haven't. But actually, there are loads of what used to be called high-functioning business people who are neurodivergent, and they're pulling it off on their business trip every week, maybe with their company and their very senior job, but they're completely imploding on holiday. Because they can't get off their tablet or their laptop, because that's their feeling of safety, and they can't just go and have random fun with the family because that's not what they're good at, and they see themselves as the provider and the hard worker who brings home a wage. This could be the mum or the dad, but they don't necessarily get the whole what is going on a holiday. Going on holiday is incredibly stressful if you're neurodivergent, because it feels a bit sort of like manufactured fun, and we tend to find things fun that other people don't, like our niche interests, which might bore the pants off someone else, for example. So going on holiday is a little bit like Christmas. Everyone has an idea of what Christmas is, and if you don't feed into that main idea, you kind of like a bit weird.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's complex. There are politics to holidays, and many people find travel difficult for many reasons. And a lot of people don't realize that you could be the owner of some Silicon Valley, company on these amazing trips and looking very high profile, but actually having meltdowns and being close to burnout because you've taken 2 weeks off with the family. And I want those people to be looked after. I really see those problems. I really care about them. And also travel gives you material to bond with people over. And when you're autistic, you're already quite an isolated person. And a lot of autistic people are sociable in their own way and love people. They just sort of want to be behind double glazing. I know I do. And And so I really want people to enjoy travel more, whether it's business or pleasure. And backpacking, I think it would be nice if more people went backpacking, because you can do it as a neurodivergent or, person. I know that, as I said, the curtains around the bed, that's a game changer for me, because then I can desensitize. I don't have to have my what I call my people Bluetooth switched on, because I don't have people trying to interact with me if I put that curtain around me. And there are all sorts of little things that can make your trip very comfortable. Sicily was very comfortable. I worked 8 hours a day. I went to the same restaurant every day for amazing food. I went on lovely walks. I met some great people. I made friends with some of the staff there who I'm in contact with, every week now. But what I couldn't do is someone say, right, tomorrow we're going on an excursion, a group of 30 or so on a coach, not knowing how far you'll be at any one time from a loo or a bed, because you need to just desensitize, or, if you've taken your weighted blanket on holiday or something, not knowing when you've got your little props with you, being around strangers who could act in any way at any given moment, because people are unpredictable.
Oh, yes, they definitely.
It's all those nuanced things.
Yeah. Talking about other travelers, do you follow any blogs about travel that you want to mention?
I don't have their names to hand, but I did enjoy researching the blogs for the autistic people who were backpacking, because it's such an unusual thing for an autistic person to really love doing, especially these people. They've done it for 4 or 5 years on the trot. I mean, that's serious travel.
4 or 5 years backpacking without a pause. Wow.
Yeah, they made it as a total lifestyle. I'm just trying to think who I read. I mean, as I said, I read a lot of novels set in other countries by foreign writers. I love watching. We have a documentary maker here, Simon Reeve, who does beautiful documentaries. I don't know how well they are known around the world, but I just love his programs. Especially, I mean, he did Tropic of Cancer, Tropic of Capricorn, and he's done, whole trips through whole continents, and just absolutely beautiful, because he always looks at the social side. And I think I've probably given the impression already, but I love to get to the nitty gritty of a culture and see the reality of it, rather than just the destinations that are just for tourists. I find that disarmingly superficial, and I'm just constantly wanting to know the reality and what people's day-to-day life is like. That's why I can't really deal with resorts and the whole Maldives thing. That just wasn't my cup of tea.
Look, Sarah, this was super interesting, and I mean, you've given quite a lot of tips, and your experience in your past travels. You have traveled an awful lot, like really, really
more than I realized. Actually, saying this.
Yeah. We could go on for hours, because there's more. So I think you're going to have to come again on the podcast in like a couple of months to continue this.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
And also, I'm super curious to know about your app. So do keep us updated on this. And as soon as it's big good luck with this project.
Thank you so much. Well, testing for the app is starting quite soon now, so it's quite exciting. I have my investor who's making it. He's got a whole stable of similar apps, but in different fields. So found the perfect partner there, and all it takes now is for me to get some serious feedback from real people who are traveling and who are neurodivergent, and to really listen to them and keep tailoring it until it's the service that it needs to be.
Yeah, and again, best of luck for your project, for the app.
Thank you for your support.
And keep us updated. And as soon as it's out, you come back and we talk about it.
Yeah, fantastic. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for having me on, and good luck with the rest of the podcast.
Sarah, it was great having you. It was really, really great having you.
Thank you so much. This is such a nice experience.
Thank you. Fingers crossed. A big hug. Bye-bye.
Bye.
This episode was offered to you by destinationeverywhere.eu, the travel platforms for people of all abilities. Now, we are not taking bookings at the moment due to the pandemic situation, but we can definitively help you if you want to start thinking about and pre-planning your next trip. So if you have any questions about finding an accessible accommodation or wheelchair adapted means of transport in the destination you want to visit, or a great guide to take you around, please do get in touch with us. You'll find us on destinationeverywhere.eu. In the contacts page, you have all the ways you can get in touch with us, or you can just drop us a message on our Instagram or our Facebook profiles. We also have a great YouTube channel where you will also find a version of this podcast with subtitles. So see you soon.